Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question: what makes people say, why not?
Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. So I have another equestrian influencer. I'm going doing the rounds of all of them at the moment. Today I have got Dillon Ryan. So I think I'm going to let Dillon explain a little bit more about himself to you guys. So first off, welcome to the podcast, Dillon. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's great.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a chat here. We've been chatting a bit, of course, over Instagram and looked at your content and thought, like, you've just like such good vibes. So I'm just buzzing for this conversation.
Oh, thank you very much. That's what I suppose I set the page up for. I was sort of set up really as a scrapbook for myself to see now, looking back, how far it's come. It's just wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, no. So, okay. For anyone who isn't familiar with you, let them all know who you are, what do you do?
So my name's Dillon Ryan. I'm 29 years of age. I'm from a very small village in North County Dublin. I work in the airline industry, and in 2020, about 5 years ago, I started to go on this equestrian journey. So I first started riding. I took my first riding lesson back in 2020, and I had never rode as a kid before, so this was completely new to me. I don't come from a horsey family at all. Back in 2020, obviously we were hit with COVID, so I had so much extra time on my hands. And this was an opportunity for me to go and explore and see what the equestrian world was about, and actually do something as a hobby for myself. So that's where it really all began.
It's interesting you saying like you don't come from a horsey background, because I think there's a lot of equestrians who don't come from a horsey background. However, they always start when they're kids. So how was it like starting 5 years ago, 23 years old? What made you think that you wanted to take this up or start doing it? Or 24 years old, even I can't do maths.
Yeah, so like where I'm from, the village is pretty small, but there is 3 yards in the village, and you'd always see horses up and down the road and horses on the beach, that sort of thing. And I always had an interest, but it was never something that I explored to want to sort of get into. So when I had the time off work, especially during COVID, I just said, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try it. I've always had an interest. Let's just go do one lesson, see if I like it, see if I don't. And I went straight to Decathlon, bought myself the cheapest pair of riding boots possible, because I knew if I didn't like it, then I could just throw them out and I never had to worry about it again. So booked the first lesson, and I really didn't know what to expect. I went in there like a nervous wreck, but like, am I going to be this adult who's getting on a horse for the first time? Am I going to be surrounded by kids who's doing this for years on end, you know? And I just went in nervous but excited to see what it was actually going to be like to sit on a horse for the first time. And yeah, I really just went for it.
I love how you bought the boots anyway. You're like, I might try it, but I'll just get some boots anyway. That, like, to me seems like you're like, this isn't going to be just a once off. Even though they were cheap boots, you were like, I think this is going somewhere. Even
Yeah.
if
You know what? I tried every hobby under the sun. I'm going to be honest with you. I tried football, I tried taekwondo, I did everything. And I was always that type that wouldn't go to the first training session without having all the gear. And you know what? I look back now and I laugh because my parents were like, trust you out of all the hobbies you've tried to stick to the most fucking expensive, you know? So yeah, that didn't really go down too well.
I'd say they were delighted though that you took it up as an adult and they didn't have to fund it.
Well, look, yeah, I suppose that's a good sign on their half.
So from that like first lesson, were you kind of like, yeah, no, I'm in the right thing now? Or did you kind of say, we'll take a few more lessons, see how it goes?
Yeah, no, I from the minute I walked in and just even just the smell of the yard, seeing the horses, I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is not what I expected at all, you know? And what really stood out to me was how supportive everybody was. You know, I was getting in with so much nerves, and everybody was so supportive, so encouraging. They were like, oh my God, fair play to you. This is brilliant. And then when I sat up on the horse, and bearing in mind I was being led around on a rope by some other adult who was bringing me along, you know, and I just loved it, being honest. I really, really did. And I was like, okay, next week, like, let's push to where I can sort of go by myself, you know, where I don't have to have someone leading me around, and just really looking forward to week on week then going forward.
Yeah, I suppose as well when it comes to horses, like it's kind of different in other sports because even if you've been riding for years, if you sit up on a different horse, it's sometimes almost like being a beginner again. So it kind of helps them be a little bit more supportive in that sense because they know like horse to horse it can be different, let alone first time starting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what really stood out to me and what I got to learn pretty quick is how different horses' personalities are and how much they will actually test you to see what they can get away with. You know, I learned that lesson pretty quick.
Especially if you're riding schoolies. So for anyone who like isn't horsey, like a schoolie is a horse that's used by a riding school. They generally own them. But like the lazy ones are always the smartest ones because they're out to like mess with you basically.
Oh, they absolutely are. Like, I just remember and I was like kicking on. And one in particular was like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere, you know? And I was like, come on, come on. And then I found I was actually wrecked, you know what I mean? But it didn't take long for me to get my confidence and be like, come on, this is what we're doing, you know? But horses are amazing. Like, they're so clever, but they will also test you to see what they can get away with for sure.
Oh, absolutely. It's an interesting experience, especially like even you have your own horse now as well. But you know, someone else sits up on your horse and suddenly the horse is like doing everything beautifully, and you're like, prick, why would you do that for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's been lessons that I was struggling to get the horse going, you know, and then the instructor would sit up on it and then it'd be like, "Oh, yeah, no, he's doing exactly what you were asking him to do, but he's doing it with me, you know, and you're like, oh my gosh. So they know, they absolutely know.
Yeah, they really do. So how did that go from going to lessons to having your own horse? Because if anyone sees now, he has a very beautiful horse called Elvis.
Oh,
And
thank you.
what was that progression like? Like, at what point did you go from lessons to being like, actually, I'm going to get my own horse?
Yeah, so I did my lessons for nearly a year and I absolutely loved them. And then I started jumping and getting more confident in my lessons. And then from there was a small group of us that actually got together and we'd go on little treks and little hacks up and down the country, sort of as a group. And that's what I loved about getting into horse riding is it's so social. You meet so many different people. And from that, from different sort of riding skills and friends of friends, we ended up starting to go up and down the country with hacks, whether that was beach rides or trekking through the forest, all that sort of stuff. And it just really gave me the confidence of not being in the arena around the four walls. So we did a couple of those, which I absolutely loved. But then from there, I heard of this thing, which was leasing. And I've never heard of leasing before. So again, for those that aren't horsey, leasing is say somebody who owns their horse, they can only ride 4 days a week or whatever, and you offer to ride 2 days a week or whatever the setup may be. So it's giving you the opportunity to feel what it's like to own a horse day to day, but not actually have the full responsibility to see actually is this something I want to progress into, which would be owning a horse full time for yourself. So from there, I started leasing. So it was actually a neighbor and a family friend who actually pointed me in the direction of my first lease. So Laura had actually advertised her Irish Draft Dawn up for lease. And of course, I jumped at it the minute I saw it. So I actually hounded Laura slightly. I was like, I wanted so much, you know. So I eventually got to go up to the yard, got to meet Don, and from there is really where my journey started. So I ended up leasing Don, and I just fell in love with horses. And that was where I really fell in love with the Irish draft. So from there, I leased on. Then I started to lease another horse on a different yard. And that's sort of where I got into the competitive side of things, where I started to get introduced to the likes of dressage and show jumping. And I suppose that's where I really, really got this is what I want to do. You know, I got that feeling of I want to do this. I'm passionate about it. I've been dedicated to it. And like going back to the leases, like you're so lucky when you find the right lease, you know. And Dawn was such a special horse, you know, she's given not just myself so much confidence, but she's helped so many riders get back in the saddle, you know, and from that, then it gave me the confidence to go out and compete that again I didn't have the four walls around me, you know. I'd go on hacks up and down the fields and my confidence really boosted. So then I started getting to the shows And it was one of my pals, Sophie, who was like, "You just need to bite the bullet and go and get your own horse." I was spending so much on leases and trying to compete every week and doing lessons on horses, but they weren't actually mine.
Yeah.
But with my job and just with financial circumstances and stuff, I was like, gosh, could I actually afford owning a horse? It was such a new world to me. So she gave me the kick. So then I went and started looking for horses. I went and trialed as many as I possibly could. And that's what everyone was telling me. Go and try all different breeds, try different horses, see what suits you, what you like. And that's when the journey started for me of going to actually think about looking to get my own horse.
What was it like actually going and trialing horse and looking to buy a horse as someone who'd only been doing it like a long time or not a short amount of time? Do you know what I mean? Because they're so complex and there's so many layers, like getting them vetted, getting them, going trying them, and even like, bring them home on a trial. Like, how was that process? Or did you have someone helping you with you as well?
Yeah, so I had a great support around me and a great load of knowledge at the same time. But I'll be completely honest, I went looking at horses by myself and I had not got a clue. It was the biggest mistake I could have possibly ever done. But looking back, I actually learned so much from it by doing it myself. But I would absolutely recommend anybody going looking for a horse, please bring somebody with you who knows what they're talking about, because people nowadays, they'll sell you unicorns. You know what I mean? So you have to be careful. But I went down to trial a horse, and again, he was a grey, he was an Irish draft, exactly what I was looking for on paper. And when I went down, the horse had shivers. And I was like, God, what the hell is shivers? I've never even heard of shivers before. And this wasn't mentioned to me before. It was on the way down, and I was nearly there, nearly into a 4 hour drive. And I was in the car Googling what was shivers. And as you can imagine, the horse, I think it was about 7 or 8, but absolutely everything I was looking for, but just wasn't the right horse for me, unfortunately. I didn't know anything about shivers. I was Googling it. I was like, God, this progresses really fastly or slowly with age. Like I was trying to get as much information as I could, because bearing in mind, I had like, what, 40 minutes to an hour trialing this horse, and I had to sort of go then and make my decision. And unfortunately, I didn't go with it. But it was sort of a blessing in disguise, because literally 7 days later, Laura, who I leased Dawn off, had called me and she said, "Look, there's a horse I think you might be interested in. Do you want to go and see it?" And of course, I absolutely jumped. I was like, "Absolutely, of course I do." And that was the journey then, starting with Duffy as my first horse on livery. And it just felt full circle to me, because I had leased on the yard with Laura, who was a grey, who was an Irish draft. And now here I am coming back to the yard with a grey, who's an Irish draft, who's now my horse. So it was like I came full circle.
Yeah, you know what? You definitely have a type because I've seen
Yeah.
Elvis as well.
And I don't know why, I really don't know why I chose to go with the greys, but that's how I started. So I'm just cracking on from there.
Like, you know what? Well done, because I don't think I could handle having a grey. Like my horse, he's down his passport is brown, but he looks black. And it's great because like a little brush, he looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Whereas like I look at people at greys and the horse is like, they clean it and they turn around and the horse is just brown again. You're like, "Oh."
Yeah, they love that.
They will find any little patch. Um, and so what was it like the day you brought Duffy home? Like, how did that feel?
Oh my God, I cried, and I absolutely cried. I just could not believe it. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is mine. And in the back of my head, don't get me wrong, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Can I actually afford this? Like, what choice have I just made? But it was the best choice and the best thing that could have ever come my way. And I'm so grateful to Laura for giving me that opportunity and for everything that she's done for me, because that was the start of my journey. And to look back now and think, I had so many firsts with Duffy. Like, it was my first proper horse that I ever owned. It was my first time going cross country. My first time winning ribbons at a show was with him. It's my first everything. Going to the beach riding was with him. So Duffy was very special for me. He was cheeky. He had his moments. If you gave him an inch, he'd take a mile. And there's been so many times where Duffy sort of ruled the roost. He sort of told you what to do, and you just went with it. But yeah, he was very special. I had a lot of my first with Duffy, so I'll always remember that.
Yeah, no, you can see like the smile as you're remembering like all the stuff with him.
Yeah,
So like obviously we don't have Duffy anymore.
yeah.
You decide you wanted something different, or what happened there?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I couldn't jump Duffy any longer. He had an injury in the near four. And unfortunately, from there, it was just a case of hacking Duffy. And I love my hacking. It's just such a breath of fresh air, especially when I come in from work to go up to the yard and go out and a hack. But I sort of had to weigh everything up because I was starting my journey with owning a horse. And really just getting going. And unfortunately, it was the circumstance that came, and it was heartbreaking for me, absolutely heartbreaking, because we had done so much in such a short amount of time. It was only about a year and a half that I had Duffy, and I had to weigh everything up. So unfortunately, I came to the decision of moving Duffy on as like a semi-retirement happy hacker, and I couldn't have found him a better home. It was a five-star home that I could that I got for him, and I couldn't have got any better. And the day the girl came to collect him, oh, I just couldn't. It was just letting them go. But looking back now, like I was just so blessed to find Sylvie and find the home that I actually got for him. And what's very rare is normally when you let horses go, you don't hear about it again. You don't know any more information. Where she would send me pictures, she'd send me videos, she'd keep in contact. And I think she just knew how heartbreaking it was for me to let him go. But unfortunately, Duffy had to be put to sleep. So that was it was really hard. It was really hard to go through because letting him go, first of all, was awful. And then to hear the news that unfortunately Duffy had to be put to sleep was just heartbreaking. And I never thought I'd own a horse again. I really didn't. I thought, okay, what am I going to do now? Will I go back to my lessons? Will I just take some time off? Will that be it for me? And it was more when I started to go on that search again, it was prices of horses. Like prices just shot through the roof. And
Yeah.
I never thought I would own a horse again. So to have Elvis now, who I don't even know where to start with it. It's just so much joy. And I can see so much of Duffy in Elvis as well, like the little personality quirks as well. And I went and I viewed Elvis, and I came home and I was like, oh my God, I want him, I want him, I want him. And then I let him go. And then I was like, God, I don't know. I was listening to too many people's opinions because he was a young horse, because he was green, because I probably did need something that was a bit more experienced. But I just fell in love with him and I went with my gut. And looking back now, it was the best decision I ever did.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's interesting you're like even going back to, selling Duffy in the first place. And
Yeah.
I think that's a decision that people don't realize how monumental that can be for equestrians. Like, people assume, oh yeah, they just get the horses to get different horses, you know what I mean? But like it is heartbreaking letting them go and like having something happen to them that um basically is going to change how, like, for instance, like with Duffy, like my horse, he did his Spencer ligament 2 years ago. That was the end of him. He's done. Like, he's retired. He's still alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like that's just it's heartbreaking, and trying to make a decision like that is massive. But in that same way, like, you have got Elvis now, and he's going to like bring you forward. He's going to teach you a lot. You're probably going to be going to have a lot of fun with him. He's 5, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 5, nice and 6. And, he's taught me so much. I only have Elvis 4 months, and by God, has he taught me so much already, because I had let Duffy go and I went back to my horse riding lessons then, and I did one lesson, and I was like, I sort of feel like I'm going backwards, if that makes sense. I felt like I was going right back to where I started, where I should be progressing. But I loved coming back to my lesson. I got to see familiar faces and stuff. But getting Elvis was just such a joy for me. But I brought Elvis home And the second day, I was up at the yard, tacked him up, brought him to the outdoor, thought I could just kick on and away I go. I have a horse again. I was that excited to own a horse again that I just thought I could do it all. Sure, I brought Elvis out to the outdoor. A tractor came in one end, cars came in the
No.
other. Elvis went from a lovely stand to straight to a bolt, and I went, "Oh my God!" So I've lost a stirrup. I'm like bolting down the outdoor of the arena. I'm like, "Oh my God, whoa, whoa! I don't know this horse." Everything was going wrong, and then we got to the corner, and Dillon ended up meeting the fence. So, yeah, it was a great start. But you know what? Talk about grounding you and bringing you back to
Literally.
reality. Literally that was for me of where my eyes sort of opened of, okay, Dylan, slow everything down. And I really did. I went right back to basics to build our bond, build our trust. And it was a whole new environment for Elvis. Like the yard he came from in County Down, it was a private yard and there was a beach 10 minutes down the road. And that's it. It was very, very quiet. Where now with livery I'm on, planes are taking off, you know what I mean? Not so far away. There's over 40 horses nearly on the yard. Like it's a huge different environment. So I suppose I just rushed it. I thought I could do it all. And really, yeah, I learned my lesson.
That's the great thing about horses. They'll always bring you back down to earth.
Absolutely.
Or literally.
You know?
It's interesting even like oh sorry, see, told you this happened. Um I suppose just maybe to explain to people as well, 5 is very young for a horse. And I
Yeah.
think I'm just saying this for anyone who's not horsey, listen to us. Normally people who do listen to these ones are horsey, but it is a big difference. So how old was Duffy?
Duffy was 14 going 15, and Duffy was an ex-hunter. So he had been there, he had seen it all, he had done everything. Where Elvis is, we use the term green for horses that really haven't much experience or are very young and haven't done much, basically. So going from a horse that had been there, had done everything, to a horse that is so young is a massive, massive jump and a huge learning experience. And I suppose that's why people were sort of telling me, stay away from a young horse, get something a bit more experienced. And you know what? They're absolutely right, but I just fell in love with Elvis for his temperament and for what he was when I was with him. And I couldn't get him out of my head. So I sort of went with my gut. And back to what I was saying earlier, I let him go and I couldn't get him out of my head because I was thinking on all these different opinions. And then I went back and asked, look, is he still available? And he wasn't. There was a guy from Boston interested in him. And I thought, oh God, I've let him go. And then my pal sent me a message and was like, did you see this? And I opened it and it was Elvis advertised again. So that didn't go through. I have no idea why. And I could not care less. You know what I
I
mean?
don't care, I got him.
I was straight on that phone and I was like, is he still available? I want him. Let's go ahead. Got him vetted, got a 5-stage vetting done. And yeah, he was mine. And it was the best thing I ever did. Now, I've learned a hell of a lot. I thought, oh, I know, like I've had a horse for a year and a half. You never know everything about horses. There is always something you're gonna learn. But getting a youngster, I suppose I didn't know what doors I was opening for myself, but I went right back to basics, and building that trust and building your bond and not rushing things is absolutely vital. And to see now just the progression and the work you put in is just so rewarding. Absolutely so rewarding.
Yeah, I think as well, you having that mindset of being willing to go back and do that, I think that is probably partially, and this is a great thing, the fact that you are new to riding. You still have loads to learn. Whereas I think there are other riders or equestrians who've been in it years and they mightn't go down that route. They'll be like, no, I'm gonna hammer on through and they're going to it's gonna be fine eventually. How important has it been for you to like go back to basics and start again?
Massively. Like for me, when I got Elvis as first, he was very, very, very spooky. And he still is a little bit spooky, but it's not visuals, it's noise. Noise, like if a big bang happened, or I remember I was on the yard, I was in the arena with him, and the guys actually opened the fridge, and the squeak of the fridge sent him flying, and I was like, oh my God. So for me to be able to go back to basics and give him that trust and confidence through me that nearly I'll protect you type of thing, you're nearly building your own little herd, not to sound cringy, but you're building that trust. So going back to basics with regards to groundwork, lunge, and that sort of stuff, it gave Elvis the trust in me and to give him extra confidence that if he did have that spook, it's okay, but you don't need to overreact. You can have that little spook, but you don't have to run off. So I really got all that through my lunging, through my groundwork, and yeah, giving him that confidence. So it has stood to us massively. Like I was in the arena last night and I got that jumping, which was huge for me because I went right back to basics. So now I wasn't even focused on heights. Every week I was out jumping Duffy on a course of 80s. My confidence was through the roof, where I don't even know. It was a cross pole and something else I put up at Elvis, but that wasn't my goal. My goal was my confidence to go from groundwork in 4 months to be back jumping the horse that I absolutely love. That just meant so much. And I only got there through going back to basics and building that trust and building that confidence. So it's really important.
Oh, I saw that video. It was amazing. And I think we can be very quick to be like, it was only little, but like you said, like it's completely different between a 14-year-old hunter who's done everything. For anyone who doesn't know what a hunter is when they go out like cross country and just they fly across everything. Those horses, a bomb could go after them a lot of the time and they won't care. But a 5-year-old, they're still a baby. They they're a fully grown horse probably at that stage, but they're still baby. They're still baby mentality. So it's even probably for Duffy as well. Like that's a lot for him as well. Even if you have someone jumping him slightly harder or higher and schooling him, he's still learning how to jump.
Yeah, for sure. And like it's the same with Elvis. Like for me, like even like I have him skills now once a week, and Clara's skills him for me jumping him, and it's to give him that confidence going into a fence. And I suppose people will probably ask you after horse 4 months, why were you not jumping him? And the reason for that was I didn't want him going into a fence where I'm unsure and he's unsure because he is still learning and he is pretty green. Where she had the confidence, she has the experience, to give him the right education that we're not going up to a fence a little bit not confident and then we pull out and then we're into a situation where he's spooking, he's running off, or we have another fall or something like that. So keeping him on a path where he's getting educated is really, really important for me. And to have somebody who knows what they're doing in my corner to give me that extra bit of advice and guidance is crucial with a young horse.
Absolutely. But it's the same as having doing lessons or getting coaching done. The only difference is they're coaching the horse directly and not you on the horse. And being able to let your ego go and go, I know this person's going to do well for my horse. I know someone who's been riding, God knows, I don't know how long, 20 years maybe. She has a horse. She's had her horse maybe 6 years right now. And she still gets someone to school her all the time because there's things she knows that they can do to make the horse better when she gets up with them.
Absolutely. And I think we all need to be open to that. Sometimes we can think, oh, we know it all, we know what's best. And sometimes we can be a little bit reserved to taking on that information, from someone else. And you know what I've learned so far in the equestrian world, like even the professionals who's been doing this years, we all learn something from other people. You know what I mean? And we can all gain so much from other people if we're just willing to listen and accept it. We're never going to know it all. No one ever will. But anything and any advice that people can give me, I will absolutely take it, 100%. And I'll also see if it works. And if it doesn't work for me, I'll find something else, but I'll never shut advice off by any means. You can learn so much from people, you really can.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you learn loads from the horses as well.
Oh, absolutely. I know it. But you know what? It's 4 months with Elvis, and 4 months is not a long time. And people kept saying to me, I know you want to do this. Like you're so excited you got a horse and you think, okay, we can crack on now. They're like, you have your whole life with him. Relax. Take it easy. You don't have to be rushing. And I suppose I learned that because I just wanted to do everything. I wanted to go on my hacks again. I wanted to jump again. And Now to see Elvis 4 months in where he's really starting to settle, he's trusting me more. He's turned out now, I suppose, again, to give people insight, I got a young horse, but I also got a young horse in the height of winter, which probably wasn't the best thing where turnout is limited. So we have a phrase in the equestrian world where we say the dragon is out. So that's when crazy season sort of starts to come and you get all the snorts, the tails are up and they're full of beans.
Yeah, that's what spring now. So that'll be in another. You'll have a very
Yeah.
much occasion 2 months coming up.
Yeah, so I definitely took on more than I maybe could handle.
Do you know what? I don't think so, because I think the way you look at it and your mentality with it means you're going to get through and you're going to come out the other side. And by the time he's 8, you guys are going to be flying. Like, and I think as well, mentioning the change in yards, I think a lot of people who maybe aren't from the horse industry don't realize how big of a difference that is to horses. Like, imagine moving house, like you're unsettled for a while.
Yeah. And the thing is with him, like Elvis, like he was on a yard where he knew where he'd been ridden there every day, and taking him from that as a new owner, like he was into school sold type of thing. And then here I am coming along, moving him again, and he doesn't know I'm his owner for life, he's just like, who the hell are you and where are you bringing me? So moving him from an environment that he was used to and that was so quiet, a beach down the road, nothing around, to a different world completely, that in itself is huge for a horse.
Yeah, but like even if we consider ourselves, like if you go somewhere new, you're constantly looking around and you're noticing different things. Whereas like if you're in the same place, like there's things, say if I walk through my estate, there's things I notice every so often. I'm like, how did I not see that in the last 5 years?
Yeah, I agree. And even now, like last night, for example, I was in riding and I sort of got a bit ballsy and I was like, I'm jumping, I don't care, I need to do this for myself. And was it foolish? Yeah, it probably was, but I just went with it. I needed my confidence back and that gave me my confidence back. But what was even more important for me was we were going around a might steer a pit off the arena wall. And the bang, he was like, oh, what was that? And sort of sped off a bit. But I was like, oh my gosh, the last time we did this, I came off on the ground, where to be like, I've just had so many things here today. I've sat my first spook, which was amazing. I'm back jumping again. Like there were so many highs that I was like, oh, this is so worth it. I just felt like I was back last night to my old self where my confidence was high. I was back doing what I loved and the hard work that I've put in over the last 4 months, seeing Elvis trusting me now that even though there was a spook, we still canted and I was like, you're okay, like, whoa, like you're grand. And then we came back, it was like, we've got it. We've got this. You know what I mean? And there was something that someone said to me a very long time ago was it's never your turn to get frightened or scared when you're in the saddle. You need to ride on and ride through it. And that has definitely stood with me. But the other thing that stood to me was someone also said to me, comparing an older horse to a younger horse. Like if you're explaining something, say myself to yourself, I'd be like, well, you run upstairs and grab me my glasses. You'd go up and grab them. Where if you say to a 5-year-old child, can you go upstairs? My room's the first one is that you get to the top of the stairs. In there's a black locker. On that locker, you'll see a green case. That's like really breaking it down. And that really opened my eyes to be like, slow down, Dillon. Let's do this properly. And I did, and it's 4 months in, and I'm absolutely just buzzing that things are starting to go on right now, go to plan. Everything Elvis is settled. I'm doing my lessons, and everything's going great. So I'm so so happy.
Yeah, I absolutely love that analogy. That's a really good point. You do really break it down for kids. But I suppose we've had a really good breakthrough moment now. What are your plans going forward now?
Yeah, so my plans at the moment now going forward for the next year is I'm having Elvis schooled once a week for his jumping to give him that extra bit of confidence. Then I have my lessons. And where do I see myself now in the next couple of months? I'd love to be out competing. So I had actually a chat with my instructor on the yard this morning, and we're going to start bringing him out to different arenas to get him used to places that's off the yard to give him something extra to be looking at, and get him comfortable out before I even start to think about competing. But Down the line, I would love to do obviously some dressage. My main thing with him is definitely going to be show jumping. So that's where that's the area that I absolutely love. And I would love to try shown with him. I never tried shown with Duffy or any of the horses that I leased. So I would love to give that a go and see how we get on that. But to be honest, right now where I am, I just love owning a horse again, just to be able to have that bond and just leisurely is even just amazing for me at the moment. Where when I do get down to the competitive side, that's even just going to be a bonus. But right now, I feel like I'm back to why I fell in love with horses again. It's that shut off, it's the bond, it's the trust, and just to go off out and ride and clear your head. It's just the feeling. I can't explain it unless you've sat up on a horse and you know that feeling.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, like it's owning them. Like when you said going back to the lessons, it is different. Like it's a complete change from when you're owning them and they're yours and you're with them all the time. Yeah, you're making me jealous now talking about that because I still have mine, but I miss the riding element of it.
You can come and ride Elvis anytime.
Gets spooked off.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much everything I have to ask you, Dillon. But before I go, normally I ask everyone at the end of every podcast, and that is, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
Oh God, the best advice I've ever been given is just go and do it. When I set up my Instagram page, I set that up as a scrapbook, okay? So that I could keep track of what I've been doing, the little journey. And from there, I have got the opportunity to now own my second horse. And most importantly, that I never thought that would happen would be to be able to work with different brands within the equestrian world. And that all started from me posting one video. So I won a Wackaro at a competition. So all the entrants were entered into a raffle. And basically, I won that raffle. And the prize was a Wackaro. And I went home, made a video using the Wackaro, posted it. Wackaro saw it, contacted me and asked me would I be interested in becoming one of their brand ambassadors, that they loved the contents that I had. And that would have never happened if I didn't just start the page and didn't post that video. So my advice is just post it, just do it. You've nothing to lose.
Yeah, you know what? That's great advice. And just doing it like yourself, even with the mentality of like picking up a 5-year-old and people would say,
Yeah.
like it is great and it's clear you're going to go far. And I'm really excited to see what brings what the next year brings you and Elvis. Like your content is really fun to watch and follow along. So everyone can do that, Dillon. Can you tell them where they can find you?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok and Instagram, and the username is Dillon_equi, and you can follow me there. You can keep up to date with everything. The one thing I love about my page, guys, if you are going to come on and follow, is it's real, it's honest. There's no bullshit. It's day-to-day life, and exactly what it's like to own a horse and working with different brands like Leavet, Wackaro, and there's so much on my page, but the most important thing is that it's real. It's real, it's honest. So I would love the support. So come on the journey.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like it like everyone wants to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it is great, and you do highlight that well on your page, I think. So I want to say thanks for joining us today. But before, if anyone's looking to follow me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. It is at Strong the Saddle with an underscore on Instagram because somebody beat me to it, and without the underscore. So the underscore at the end on Instagram, but at Strong the Saddle without the underscore on TikTok because I won that battle. And you can find me on my website as well as www.chrissyhawkins.com. So Jill, just want to say thanks again for joining us today, Dylan. That was a really good conversation.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.